investor in real estate. Yeah.
You
Good.
beat the weather there. Is it like 70, 80 degrees down there now?
Yeah, it's like high 80s, or no, high 70s to mid 80s right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my friends that live there say they don't consider it really hot there until it gets to be 120.
Oh my goodness.
But it's a dry heat. Remember, it's a dry heat.
It is. Cool. Well, awesome. I'm so happy you guys can join. I think Yan is also here as well.
Hi, Yan.
Hello.
Right. I think we have pretty much everyone. I know. I think Andrew sent out an invite to Andrew and Shanak, and they're from the area, so hopefully they can join us and discuss that too. But if not, I think maybe wait another 2 minutes and we can get going. But it's super casual. Just have a chat and discuss this deal and other things you guys want to talk about. And looks like Peter's also on the call as well. Hey, Peter.
Hey guys.
Hi, Peter.
Hey.
Hey Henry, I did make a comment in Slack
Oh,
with
okay.
a full 8 minutes before the call.
Oh.
It's good advertising.
All
It's
right.
for people that don't have anything to, that are wondering what they can do real estate wise tonight.
Let me take a quick look. Yeah, so for the audience, thanks for staying put, and we'll be starting in 2-3 minutes. I don't think we have too many people today, but most people we actually know already. Looks like Nancy is shy. She doesn't want to be on panelists today, but hey, Nancy and Jeff and Max. Hey, guys. Thanks for joining the call. All right. I'm trying to find your message. Let's see.
You won't miss it. It's a long message.
Oh, Yan, you always give me such a hard time.
No.
Gosh, I'm trying to use bullets. I'm abbreviating things, and I hadn't said anything all day. So think of it that way.
Oh, wow.
All
I
that
like it
pent
that
up.
you're after me on that.
Wow, you do. Wow, Peter, I think you do have a lot of findings. So I'll definitely want to just hear you say, speak it up.
Okay, and
So we don't spoil it. Mhm. But yeah, well, I guess we can probably just get going. Looks like we have quite a few of us here on the call already. So let me just share my screen and hopefully
hey
you can
Henry,
all see it.
a quick question: Are we recording this? Oh yeah, we are. Good.
Yep, we are. Yep, we definitely
Mhm.
recording it.
Yeah, great.
All right, so I think we can get going. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our co-investing group meeting number 7. Wow, that's 7 already. We have panelists from all over, from Seattle to San Francisco, Austin. I don't think they're making it from Austin, but definitely from New York and Chicago are here today. We're going to be talking about this project, which is in Leander, Texas. And the purpose of the group is really to help each other to learn and how to understand and analyze deals, and also keep each other our minds sharp. Whether we're waiting for a great deal, or we can stay active and looking at what great projects are being done out there. What are the syndicators are talking about selling and putting deals on their contracts, so we can help each other to learn. So that here we are in the number 7 meeting. So, by the way, if I missed anything, feel free to chime in. This is super casual. We're going to have fun talking about this deal. So, just quick legal housekeeping stuff. This is just an information summary of this project from this sponsor. We're not in the project sponsor team, and we're really just to provide information. Also, if you're going to invest in this deal, don't rely on, this is only our interpretation, and you should read the PPM. And and this is also does not replace your own due diligence. All right. So, oh, hey, looks like Andrew's just joining us. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good to see you. What you got there? Is it an office? I can hear
Yeah,
you, but I don't see
just
you.
Still in my office at work.
Oh, wow, you got a cool hairstyle.
Oh, yeah,
So,
I cut it, so.
Nice.
Oh, wow. It's very long now.
Yeah.
How do you get time to get hair? I can't even get out of my house to get a haircut.
Well, we got a lot of time now with coronavirus, so
Right.
no shortage of time to mess around with stuff like hair.
That's true. Awesome. Well, glad you joined us. So yeah, I think we got all the people here on the call. And I'm from Seattle. I'm the first one on the list. I'm Henry. Just been a single family investor and looking to do more projects in the multifamily space. Why don't you just go down the list and give you guys a short intro?
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here tonight. My name is Vivek Arza, based in San Jose. I've done some single family investing and also trying to get into multifamily. Glad we can have a group like this to analyze deals so that we can sharpen our skills. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yan. I'm from New York, New Jersey. Same here, interested in multifamily, and then we help each other to sharpen our underwriting skills.
So I'm Peter Pomeroy, and I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I have I'm full-time in real estate and have worked in brokerage, investment, development, construction. And then about maybe 2 or so years ago, started to shift from office industrial land to multifamily. So we all kind of connected through Neil's empire.
Hi, I'm Mary Schnurr. I'm in Chicago. I've invested in single family in the Denver area and passive investing in different syndications. And I'm interested in practicing underwriting, learning about evaluating.
I don't think Blue Jay is here. Is Blue Jay here? I haven't checked the list, but
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't see him.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go. So James McCrary from Orange County, which is Los Angeles area. Been helping our family has some single families up in Detroit, so I've been helping manage those for a few years, and been real estate myself for about 3 years with the focus on multifamily, and just always up for learning, always looking for, especially new development. It's kind of not my area of expertise, so really interested in looking at what other people are doing and kind of seeing the approach that they take.
I'm Andrew Brewer. I am sort of halfway between San Jose and Austin at this point. Originally grew up in the Bay Area. I've been here for about, I moved away for college, came back to the Bay Area, been working in San Jose for about 3 years, and trying to move out to Austin, was actually planning to make that move formal at the end of March. But when coronavirus hit, I decided probably not the best time to leave my stable, essential W-2 job if we're about to get 30% unemployment. So I kind of pumped the brakes on that. But I do have a house out in Austin. My family's out there. So kind of halfway at this point, but hoping to get out there and move into real estate full time in the very near future. I've been investing for about 3 years. Did single family in Kansas City for a while, and then about a year ago realized that single family wasn't scalable to the extent that I wanted, so sold off the homes that I had bought and started looking into multifamily. I attended Neil Bawa's boot camp with many of the people here, so looking to just continue along on that vein, get into some deals, practice underwriting, just stay in the loop and pick up opportunities as they come along.
Great. And we also have Chris Grant, a special guest today. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, hey, so I'm Chris Grant. I think a few of you are already on the call, but I'm up in Washington State right now, about an hour and a half south of Henry. So I've been full-time in investing for the last 4 years. So I come to W2 about 4 years ago, and I guess a few years prior to that, I had since 2011, I've had single family and kind of small multifamily properties. So yeah, just looking to scale up into larger multifamilies. I think most of everybody here mentioned they're in Neil's group. I'm actually in Rod Khalif's group as of last June. So yeah, I'm just in the same boat as you guys, looking to passively invest, actively invest, and yeah, just learn more from the group.
Hey, well, thanks everyone. Do we have Shonek on yet? If not, we can just keep going. Looks like, yep, that's everybody. Oh, all right. Okay, well, when we get started, by the way, feel free to, oh, did I hear somebody? No. All right. All right. Oh, by the way, the audience, if you guys wanted to just chime in and check, or if you have any question, you can throw it in a Q&A box. I think we can all take a look, keep an eye on that. So this one, as a deal actually brought to me attention from Chris, and Chris has a relationship with the project sponsor, and I actually also met him on the phone, talked with them a little bit about this project. Because it is a 506B project, so I'm not gonna actually tell you who the operator is, but if you want to know that after the call, you can just feel free to just contact me or anybody on the in this panel today. So here's kind of the project premise from the sponsor, and we're going to see whether these things are true or how their assumptions work and whether it's realistic or not. So in a high level, this project is a new construction, and it's going to be in the Leander, Texas, which is about 30 minutes drive from Austin. Oh, by the way, if I think I hear some feedback, maybe
we should go to.
Yeah, if you guys could just go on mute, that'd be great. And so it's a 30 minutes drive from Austin, kind of in the backyard of Austin. It has really good, really strong demographics. Tailwind, I call it, based on this population growth, jobs, and income growth. Also, I see that it's more like a solid B and C location with pretty strong median household income. So the way how the sponsor described this project to me was this project is going to be, or it is a COVID or coronavirus resistant, meaning that this the project won't be affected by rent collection issues or vacancy because it's not going to be built until 14 or a year and a half. There's not going to be any mortgage or loan, initially. I think they're looking to get a refi and get the capital out, but initially there's no loan, so it's with a 27% break-even occupancy, so they think it's fairly safe. And over there, construction is an essential business. Not in my state, but it is in Texas and actually most of the states in the country. And they're advertising the return at an IRR about almost close to 11%, and a annual cash on cash return about 12.36%. And their project horizon is 10 years whole, but they do plan to refi and return 80% of the capital to the investor by year 2. So that's the premise, and let's go deep and see whether you think it's doable. So we look at these 5 factors, which is basically looking at how credible is the project sponsor team, whether they have good track record, and also kind of interview them and kind of hear from them what they say about this project. By the way, which is good because when I spoke to one of the project sponsor, he has actually agreed to, if there's interest in this group, we can actually invite him and come talk to us about how he put this project together or anything we wanted to ask or grill him. And the demographics, of course, when we look at the population growth, job growth, home value, et cetera, et cetera. Business plan, their business plan is new construction, so whether it makes sense, whether the cost makes sense, also kind of see any holes in the business plan. Supply and demand, that's definitely important, especially for new construction. We don't want to have too many new units in the market when this property is going to get online. And lastly, we're going to check the financial model. Again, I really appreciate this project sponsor actually sending the Excel spreadsheet, and thanks, Chris, for getting that from us. and we're able to kind of analyze the numbers, not just looking at a PowerPoint. So we can plug in different assumptions, and which is really the key thing about the financial model is looking at all the consumptions and really stress test the model. So I'm going to go into talk about the project sponsor. By the way, anyone feel free to chime in and talk anytime. This is what's presented to me. They're going to give me a list of past performances, projects, and kind of a short bio for their team. It looks like the group is consists of 2 main partners, but they also bring in the builder as their GP. Which I thought was very interesting and actually might be beneficial having the builder part of GP, so at least the interests are aligned, so to speak. And the group has, or at least the 2 main partners have, I think that the main guy or the older gentleman has 30 years of real estate experience. He actually was from Washington, and I think look up, he was past president of the Multifamily Housing Association here. And he was kind of the property manager person. He founded a property management firm, had lots of units under his management, and then he sold it off, actually. Now he actually doesn't run the management side. He's mainly working as the syndicator. And another plus is they actually live close to the subject property. I think the younger guy, he lives like 10 minutes from the lot. So there's expecting there's a lot of local knowledge and knowing who the contractors are if they live close by. And the builder, which they brought in as the co-GP, he's working as a builder for many years, but the team have worked together for 10 years and over, has done a lot of mostly value add projects. So I don't think they have as much as a strong resume for new construction. But I think he has a guy that works for him, was the VP of development. He introduced himself as someone who has used to work for D.R. Horton, built a lot of homes, and he's done large commercial projects up to 168 million. So I guess we'll have to verify that later if these things are indeed true, but looks like a pretty impressive resume. Also, they brought, it looks like they have done how many 6 projects full cycle with pretty impressive IRR. So I think most of these projects happen within.
And who is it? Who's done these projects? Is this the older partner, the older and the younger partner?
Yeah, so I think the projects there in Michigan were done by the younger partner. I think he might have another project. The old partner did a lot of the Texas project as well. So I'm not exactly sure what the split is, but I know for sure that the younger partner did his project over in Michigan. Yeah, so I don't know much detail about the property manager. Maybe Chris, you know anything about who's managing this property? But it's something I intend to find out a little bit later. Anything you think I missed, Chris?
No, I think that so far that sounds pretty good. I know they have so they have 6 there that went full cycle, and I think they have another handful that are actively being managed, asset managed too.
Yeah. So I mean, I also know of these guys from previous. They were sitting on panels with Barclays and meeting and some other. They're pretty. I guess they're known in the circle, I guess, for syndications. So that might be, they have a reputation to hold, I guess. So, all right, with that said, I'm gonna jump to the next chart, which is talking about the demographics.
And so, and what are the names of the sponsors? You'll get to that soon, or
I think
no?
I wanted to tell you after meeting because it's
Okay.
the 506B project. I'm not supposed to do that,
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think there's some requirements, but if it's 506C, I'll let you know even where the project is too. So I'm kind of not want to talk about that, but we'll talk after the call. And this one is located close to Austin. I mean, Austin has great, everybody knows a lot. I mean, most people know Austin is a kind of like a tech hub with huge job growth, top 10 metros for a number of different categories. But this project is located like 30 minutes drive. It's like a freeway. is on this. Well, I forgot what freeway number it is. Maybe I think maybe Andrew knows more, but it's pretty close. And inside Leander, Texas, I saw they had um, the Davis Hospital. They had the community college, and pretty close to there, I think a Cedar Park has. I think Apple is going there to build a campus. Going to employ some 5,000 tech people. So so this is more actually a little bit more affordable than Austin. I mean, Austin is affordable, but Leander is even more so. Um, so it's more like the I kind of see it as more like a Class C, Class B suburbs to Austin. Um, so that's definitely things are growing there a lot, which we'll get into the data in a bit. Anything else I miss, Andrew or Chris or anyone who look into Leander?
I mean, obviously Austin, everybody knows Austin. It's booming, it's exploding, lots going on there. In terms of Leander specifically, one of the big things that I've seen with Leander is that their population has nearly doubled in the last 10 years, going from, I think, about 26,000 in 2010 to about 56,000 is the 2018 estimate. So with that much population growth, I mean, that's obviously a good thing. I do know that just all over the Austin area, they're building like crazy. So that could be something to keep an eye on. However, with the amount of people moving into Austin, I don't necessarily think that's going to be as big of a problem in terms of oversaturation. I know that Austin as a whole doubles its population about every 20 years and has since the 1880s. And it's on track to do that again. I know at the current moment, there's about 1.5 million people in Austin, and they're predicting that's going to hit about 4 million by, I think, 2040. So, obviously, if we're evaluating projects, and especially this one with a 10-year hold, we have to think about what's going on at the current moment, but also, thinking 10 years down the line, where is the area going to be in 10 years? And Austin is showing no signs of slowing down. The downtown Austin area is quickly becoming extremely expensive, and a lot of people are being forced out into areas like Leander and other suburbs in the area like Round Rock, Pflugerville, Cedar Park, and places like that. Leander is a little bit closer to the tech hub that is springing up. Now, when people think Austin, they think tech. That's very true. Tech isn't going in as much in the downtown Austin area. It's actually centering more in the North Austin area near Round Rock. Dell Computers global campus, their global headquarters is located in Round Rock. So that corridor in between Round Rock and downtown Austin is filling in pretty heavily right now. The Apple campus that Henry mentioned is kind of right in between there. So I think that as that comes online in 2021, they're estimating between 5,000 and 15,000 new high-paying tech jobs. So that could potentially bring places like Leander up a little bit and increase the cost of living, which, is good for investors as rent goes up. Trying to think, anything else in that area. I mean, just in Texas as a whole, most of the population growth is centered in the triangle formed in between Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Houston. So buying anywhere along that corridor, I think overall is a good buy because there's a lot going in there. And Leander it's right there. It's right in between Austin and Dallas. So I think that it's demographically and just geographically, it's a good place to be. But that's my 2 cents from researching the area.
Yeah, and you're moving over there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That's really good analysis. Thanks. Oh, also, by the way, these charts were provided by the operator, so I'm just merely putting them on there here as well. So I did some digging, and this is actually on my own notes, kind of using Neil Bawa's kind of, we call it the city data analysis, and kind of see whether it meets these criteria. And he has one for population, one for household income and house value, crime index, and so forth, and job growth. So for him, in order to meet his criteria, it needs 20% of job growth, of population growth, and this city is just wow, 468%. It basically, this town was built within the last 10 years. So it's definitely grown quite a bit. It looks like it meets all the household income criteria, house value, crime index is really low already in the beginning. And the job growth, I think this number is more for Austin, Texas. It's a really high number. And then this lower chart is for the whole region, so that also includes Austin. And so it looks like 10 is the best number you can get. And so it's pretty much all green circle, except for a little bit, I guess, number 3 for the last 2 years, and for unemployment trend came up a little bit or down a little bit.
I think it went. I think it went down, but it was down to begin with. So the comparatively didn't jump too much.
Yeah, so I don't think I'm too concerned about that.
Yeah.
Looks like a really strong market. And from employment by industry, again, this is an Austin, Texas number. It looks like the primary jobs highest number are the healthcare plus education. And then next is the business and professional service. I would guess the ITs and tech jobs are kind of well into that bucket. But that's account for almost 40%, a little less than that. And then you got the retail and the tourism. I think compared to the US, it looks like it's higher number for the healthcare and the professional business sector, which is probably the most important sectors. And then the other ones, they had a little bit higher tourism. So that could be a concern, at least temporary, during the COVID-19, and a little bit higher in the retail side. But I think they're still kind of within the average, I think. So the growth looks like it's a lot in the construction side, and also a lot in the business and professional services. So I think that's a good sign there. But they are seeing a decrease in the number of government jobs. So that's interesting. I didn't know governments do reduce their headcount. So,
so the employment data is for Austin because Leander's too small to have its own, right? And is Leander, like, do you know, is it truly a suburb? Like, is it all the way over there? Did it grow as a natural growth of Austin, or is it an old-timey town that Austin grew out to meet? Anybody familiar with this area?
I don't know for sure the history of Leander. I do know that it's its own little town or city, whatever the definition of town or city would be. But it is solidly in the Austin area and is definitely within commuting distance to downtown Austin. I couldn't speak to the actual breakdown of which workers live in Leander as opposed to Austin, but it certainly is well within commuting distance. So it's not something that's like, out, kind of on the fringe, and maybe you'll get some people from Austin, but they're mostly not. It is a commuting bedroom community, as with many of the other towns in that area. Another thing to remember there is the city of Round Rock is about 15 to 20 miles north of Austin and is pretty close to Leander. And Round Rock itself is really growing as its own little entity. So they have a lot of jobs and a lot of development going in there. So Round Rock, as much as downtown Austin itself, I think will be a jobs draw. So, looking at Austin City is definitely good, but I think we should also place some focus on Round Rock as a job center, because that really has been growing in the last couple of years.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I wanted to clarify that this chart is not just Austin, I should say. It's kind of Austin Round Rock is a chart download from Local Market Monitor, which grouped those two together. So you're right. So thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So just a question for Andrew, while he's on the, so would you say the path of progress is around going north of Austin downtown, as you described? What about the other sides of Austin, Andrew?
So
I'm curious to know.
For Austin, if you look north, you go to Dallas Fort Worth, is the next like large city. And in
Right.
between Dallas Fort Worth, you've got Waco, and then south of that you've got Temple. And then you
Got
get
it.
to Round Rock, then you get to Austin. South of Austin, the next big city is San Antonio, and in between that is San Marcos, is
Got it.
kind of the big city in between there that's kind of growing up. And then to the east of Austin, there's not much. Obviously the next big city along that road is Houston, but that is quite a ways.
Mm-hmm.
There is development out to the east in some of the areas like Bastrop, those places are coming up, but I'm seeing most of the growth is centering and filling between Round Rock and Austin.
I see.
And in San Marcos as well.
Got it.
A lot of the big tech jobs that are going in Austin are focused in between Round Rock and Austin. So there's Dell's global headquarters are in Round Rock. They've been there for a long time. So that's always been a huge draw. Apple is building its campus, which is going to be the second largest Apple campus, the largest outside of Silicon Valley. That's just a little bit south, like maybe 3 to 5 miles south of Dell's headquarters. Amazon is also in talks to build its largest warehouse in the area in Pflugerville, which is a little bit southeast of Round Rock, as well as a logistics center. So the Amazon campus that they're looking to put in would be a warehouse and a logistics center. So the logistics center would, in theory, be drawing a lot of tech jobs as well. That project has not been formally, I guess, negotiated yet. The Apple campus, they have broken ground. That's a done deal. Amazon, they're still negotiating. There has been some pushback from the residents in Pflugerville who, there's some NIMBYs in Pflugerville. They don't want a big app or a big Amazon thing in their yard. But the city of Pflugerville is pushing pretty hard to get Amazon there because they know that it will stimulate job growth in the area. So, any way you look at it, you've got Apple, Amazon, and Dell. I mean, 3 big players centering north of Austin. And then there's a bunch of little startups kind of popping up around that area. And that's all north of Austin. So I'm seeing a lot of fill in that area. And there's a lot of land out there. Like, it's not completely built up. It's not the Bay Area out there where there's not really much land to build. There are pockets where you can build. There are new neighborhoods going in. So that will definitely affect housing values going forward. There is going to be more supply. It's not like, everything's just built up already and the only way for prices to go is up. There will be some tempering there. But I do see a lot of growth going in north. Not as much to the south. I think a lot of the southern growth is focused in San Marcos.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna look into the neighborhoods. This is now going to get down to the census tract area, about mile, a little bit plus minus radius. And we can kind of take a look at the income level over there. It looks like it's 75,000, which is pretty high for, I think, for the suburb. And then, decent.
Pretty high for Texas too,
pretty high for Texas. Yeah, they are one of the, right, which is, and also kind of looking at the population growth there, you can see even from the half-mile radius within the last 5 years, it has grown 60%. I have never seen a number like that. Yeah. Town is basically remaking itself, and from an income and educational level, so definitely high on the income, and education is kind of right in the center compared to the nation. I think this is what that is, not necessarily compared to the state maybe, so kind of right in the middle. And then the crime wise is pretty low. Leander's low. This is a little bit high, but it's still lower in overall Texas. Because some of these numbers are very encouraging for the neighborhood side. Okay. All right, I think I can cover a lot of that. Just more demographics data. Unemployment level, it's kind of in line with the nation, about 3.6, although that number might have jumped up in the last few weeks. We don't know, have the data yet. as far as industries, lots of construction related. So I guess maybe some of these construction that Andrew talked about, with these new company distribution center Apple campus, maybe a lot of those people are commuting from Leander. Second was retail. I think the nationwide retail is about 12%. So that's kind of average. I would say is not higher than average. Education, 10%. So it's pretty, I guess, this fairly distributed. Healthcare is 9.5%. So I don't see anything major there. Maybe construction could temporarily take a hit, but I don't think construction is, like I said before, construction is essential business. So things are keep rolling there. And as far as occupation, kind of what kind of a job they have within these industries, looks like most of them are actually in executive, manager, and professional jobs. Pretty high number there. The rest is pretty fairly distributed. So not seeing any concern right there. And as far as family household makeup, looks like we have about 20% single and 30% married couple neighborhood. So nothing too surprising there, I guess. And also low in poverty level, like high income, and also only 5.5% children living in poverty. All right, so it goes through pretty well. As far as income and income change, we talked about it, but this is data from Justice Map, and it looks like it has high income and it's changed a lot. So it's all good from here. That's the actual parcel, or I mean the census tract. Okay. And the location. So just take an aerial shot on Google Map. It looks like there is some infrastructure built out already, like the school is there. This is freeway where some shops, but like what Andrew said, there is still a lot of land. So it's kind of fairly still looking rural area. I guess one of the not so positive side is it has a bunch of mini storage and some RV park or maybe mobile home park near the property. So that not necessarily adding value. In the next, I guess in the next 5 to 10 years, I can see this areas are going to get built out. So we'll see how that might change the entire look of the community. One thing also negative might be the school. They're not so strong as far as in the grade school rating. So this might be kind of like an area that's still kind of maybe a class B, maybe C type of an area. It looks like
So
there's.
what was the school rating, Henry?
Yeah, it's a 3 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 3 out of 10 for high school. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to consider though that this is an area that is still coming up. It's not an extremely developed area. Like Henry said earlier in the call, this town has really exploded in the last 10 years. Is really in the last 20 years it's come up. So there is still work to be done there, which could be part of the reason for the lower school rankings. We also have to remember that this isn't a super high area. Like if people have like really, really high income, and, can afford to be sending their kids to private schools. I mean, those aren't the people that are living in Leander. People that move out to places like Leander are people that they can't afford, the $500,000 home in downtown Austin. They're looking for something cheaper. On that vein, that is something to consider, is that, there is a different mentality in Texas. People like space, people like land. They want to have a yard. A lot of the people that I've talked to in the area, they want to buy a house. They're not necessarily interested in being a lifelong renter. So people that are going to be moving out to Leander, I mean, I think that a lot of them are going to want to buy houses, so there is going to be competition there. I know that the housing prices in Leander have gone up, and they've gone up all over the Austin area. I mean, it's pretty hard to get a house for under $200,000 in any part of the Austin metro area at this point. And, for a lot of C-class workers, that's not really attainable. Most people aren't as savvy into ways to get their hands on a house as we are. So that is just something to think about in terms of who the tenant base is going to be. I don't think it's going to necessarily be people that are, working in tech or people that can afford a house. It's going to be people that are looking for something cheaper and people that are probably working more service jobs, just from what I've seen in people moving.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Okay. I'm gonna continue now. We're gonna dive into the business plan. So kind of talk about the plan. They are building a garden style. I have a rendering the next slide. And it is 50 units. Consists of only 4 one-bedroom. So I guess they're looking at a bigger size, bigger bedroom. Those are only 650, which is probably big in Seattle for 1 bedroom, but on the smaller end in Texas. On the 2-bedroom, they're building 46 of those, and of that, it's 883 square feet. It's a little bit bigger, but I still see them a little bit smaller compared to the comps, which I'll show a little bit later. I think everything is, since it's new, they're already doing all the sub-metering, and individuals are paying for their own electricity bill. And from the cost perspective, which I thought was very interesting, they're building this project, basically total cost of the project is about $6.6 million. That includes all the fees, which is from if we're just looking at the construction, the hard cost, they're able to build it at $110 per square feet, which is wow. I mean, that's really inexpensive. I don't know what is the going rate there in Austin, but also accounting for the fact that the builder says he's going to basically build at cost, and he building the partner. So, I mean, you might have to add another 10 to 15% overhead for what the street rate is for builder, but still pretty low. So total cost per unit is about 132,000, which is a number we'll keep going back to. So that's kind of the lay of the land, so to speak.
One thing I'll say on that is just not specific to this project itself, but it was mentioned earlier that the builder is a GP on the project. When I spoke to one of the guys, who's one of the GP partners, it looks like the breakdown there is that the two syndicators are taking 15% of the GP pie, and the builder is getting 5%. But as we, think about real estate projects and different projects and perhaps putting projects together in the future, as Henry said, the builder is essentially building this at cost for a very small part of the GP. So, there's a trade-off there to look at. That could be a potential good thing in bringing in a GP or bringing in a builder as part of the GP, is it keeps the initial cost down. And it's a way to get things like this built without having to do as large of a capital raise. So just, something to consider for other projects. I think that, cost per square foot in terms of building, it can reach, 150, 160 per square foot. If that's getting cut down a significant amount, it really does help with the capital raise. The overall cost of this is actually pretty low. So that's just, it is an approach to think about taking as we look at other projects or look to put together new development projects.
Yeah.
That's definitely a creative sort of a deal structure going forward. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that not only the cost to raise, you don't have to raise as much capital, but from a schedule-wise, if the builder has 5 projects, he probably want to put in more energy and try to get it done his own projects since he actually owns partnership. But I'm surprised though that the builder is only getting 5%. I thought that number might be a bit low, considering if the overhead on the cost, let's say what's for hard cost-wise, if he's making 5 to 10%, that's potentially is that about $500,000 that he's giving up in exchange for shares of the pie. So I'm not sure that's the right trade-off.
I'm wondering if he did a cost benefit on it, but he also might be motivated to do more of these. And it would also be interesting to look at his numbers. I don't know.
Right.
You know, to Andrew's point, it's, you know, if you've got a fully aligned contractor on board, you know, that's really good. It could also create a lot of conflicts, though, if
Yeah.
two of the GPs think the contractor is like, you know, whatever, there's some issue. You know, sometimes it's frankly nice not to have a you know, a partnership relationship with the GC, but rather you know, you've hired him. But
Right.
So question, you said the 5%, but they have a separate developer fee or not?
They do have a separate develop fee that's 5% of the total project. So if that's $250,000. So if he's only getting 5% of that, that's what is how much is that? It doesn't sound like a lot. 5% of 50,000.
And
Yeah.
this is the builder that they first time collaboration, or they always work with this builder?
I was told they've been working together for 10 years on value adds projects. This might be their for. I mean, they have done some, like if they're adding a couple of units, for example, that's quote unquote construction, but not a new development together.
I see. Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, I think like you mentioned the 5% upfront development fee, but I think there's also a project management fee that's kind of rolled into, baked into that too. And I don't know if it necessarily means, you know, be interested to see what their, I know it's 15% and 5%, but you know, if their operating agreement, you know, allows him a larger portion of that development fee, you know, it could be structured different than just the GP split, you know.
Huh. So then it would be interesting to know what at cost means.
Yeah, actually, and at cost, I have a chart to talk about kind of what I see as construction. By the way, just throw this out here, and we'll talk about construction a little bit more. But this is the product they're building. It's kind of like almost like a fourplex looking, like a fourplex here, and then there's some standalone homes there, and some garages. I think there's not going to be one garage for every unit. I forgot what the ratio is, but there's plenty of parking. There's there at least one parking for each unit, but not all of them has the garage. And that's the only amenity, as far as I understand it. There's no gym, no swimming pool, and that's one reason why they try to keep the cost down, is to build basically a Class B product. I mean, from age-wise, it would be kind of as Class A, but from an amenity standpoint, they don't have much. So kind of purposely try to keep the rent a little bit lower as well. Okay, but there is.
I just want to say one thing about swimming pools and gyms. So I was looking at cost of putting swimming pools here in Northern California, and I never got like a good quote, but there was a lot of variability to cost. And you know, that's in Marin County, where it's kind of expensive to, like, you know, sneeze. So, and maybe it's a space thing, but like I would bet like you could put a swimming pool in there for $50,000. And I do like believe that, given like what we've seen, that they definitely need to be building for a Class B tenant. But then, like, as soon as you were talking, I was like, well, why? Gosh, if they could put a swimming pool in there, then they could have you know, for $50,000, which is like not a big cost thing. They could have a differentiated Class B product that might drive more demand and, you know, in theory, more rent. So it would be, maybe I'll do this, is find out kind of like what the cost is to put in a swimming pool and what the cost is to put in a gym. Because we always, like, and myself included, say, oh, they're saving money by not putting in a pool and a gym. And my question is, what's the incremental cost of a pool and gym? And then go to a Noto and see what that rent gets you, or what that cost gets you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it is essential. I think Max has said that, yeah, it should be really hot in Texas. You do need a pool. And I also look at all the comps. It's super hot, right? And almost all the comps that I looked at has a pool. I mean, the sponsor did mention about that there is a similar product that the I think the floor plan or the drawing or layout was done on another similar type of property. It's only 20 units and they don't have a pool, and they were able to rent it out all out in less than a month. I heard that reference, but I wasn't able to dig into that. But it looks like it's still being done. But I agree. I think a swimming pool would be essential there. But, okay, well that's their design decision. So this is their cost summary. I don't think we're gonna dive into here, but you can take a look at it a little bit later and see whether they're in line. But this is the chart where I kind of want to open it up for discussion. So kind of what are the pros and cons to partner with a builder, but also what risk. So one thing I didn't find on the cost summary was the builder risk insurance. I think that's usually a breakout as a cost item because they get expensive. So I wonder who is carrying that. So that's something I thought, because also look at total cost of the project. It looks like the soft cost for this project is really low. I mean, they basically roll them all up into the land cost, which is 730,000. For the total project of 6 million is just a little bit above 10%, or maybe in the 15% range, less than that. But I also look at other types of new development project in Boise, and even the one in Houston that Neil just talked about yesterday. Kind of soft cost land is roughly 20 to 25%. So I thought the cost was a little bit low. So I'm not sure, maybe something we're missing or hidden, I'm not sure. The other part was about the permit status. So as I heard on the call, the sponsor talked about the permit is almost ready or getting ready, but then I heard from the sponsor said it's now done. So I'm not exactly sure because if there is done, then the cost of pulling that permit, right, is usually at the permit desk. You have to pay 200,000 or whatever, pretty high, expensive cost for the traffic impact fee, the fire department, the police, the school fee, and the sewer, the water, those type of things usually get a pretty big chunk of money. So I'm not sure where all that go. So I guess that's something we'll clarify if someone will want the interest in investing in this project.
Yeah, I just would add, what's great about a project like this is the willingness of the sponsors to be transparent and talk about all these things. Whereas if this was a $50 million deal, good luck. I would, if investing in this, I would go through all the line items. I'd Google, what line items am I forgetting about, or look at past deals I've worked on, and just have a conversation and ask a lot of questions about that. Because naturally, they're putting their best foot forward. I don't think their assumptions are like a base case. I think they're either base/best or even best case, because especially having a contractor as a GP, contractors, their whole deal is to manage cost and manage the risk associated with the cost. And so therefore they're going to be inclined to potentially, put their best foot forward. So, just by asking questions, you would, one, learn for yourself, but also help the whole project team be like, okay, well, maybe we're being a little aggressive here. And a group this small would value that, I think.
Yeah,
a big deal might, tell you to take a hike.
Yeah, because a builder would be able to do some value engineering, especially owns a building, and he's gonna want to say, hey, can we save costs on here? Can we do it better this way? Can we redesign this way? Yeah, but by the way, for those who don't know, Peter has tons of development experience that you can probably hear. So his advice is really good. The other part of it is because there are this partner relationship, so there is not going to be a guaranteed maximum price, which I think they call GMP. Basically, there's not a ceiling price. So if the price is basically cost plus, so anything they charge will charge to the project. So there isn't really not a ceiling where if it goes over that budget, then the builder will eat it. In this case, it's cost plus. So there's definitely risk in that category. But at the same time, because it's a GMP, there's no GMP. So the builder are not requiring a contingency reserve, which could be from 5 to 10% of the project. So, I mean, usually the builder who's doing GMP would be taking that contingency. Even if doesn't spend the contingency, he'll still use it. Like that's his part of his profit. So in this case, there's no contingency reserve, so they don't have to, raise that capital from the investor. And also, if there is actual savings, or say if the project costs, 5.3 million, it only costs him 5 million to build, the saving of 300,000 goes directly to the investor of this project. So there's the risk and reward. So kind of depend on what side you favor. It's how I see it.
So Henry, a question. So basically, I see we try to see like how align the interest of this builder with other investors, right? So I think if you can mention that what is the, like, for example, do they have pref? And if there's a pref, after the pref, what is the split? Then we kind of can figure it out how aligned the interests are.
That's a great question. Exactly. Are they investing just like the LP as far as the split goes? Every month, dollar they get, it would get the same 80-20 split as the rest of us. And how much is he investing in the deal or not at all? Also, going back to what Andrew said about the 5% split on the GP, is it 5% on the entire project or 5% of the GP pie? If it's 5% on the entire project, that makes a lot of sense. But if it's 5% of the GP pie, that's pretty small. So there's not a whole lot of incentive. They're not aligned in that sense. I would much rather charge the fee to the project than it is to, I don't care about the bonus of the pie as much.
But, and when you talked about the pie earlier, you said the two syndicators, they had 15% and then the builder had 5%. So they're different, but they're not that much different. That means each of them had 7.5% and the builder gets 5%, or does it mean each of them get 15% and the builder gets 5%? So I don't know which it is.
From what I saw, they're doing an 80-20 split with 20% going to the GP and then 80% going to the LPs. Now within that 20%, 5%, so I guess that's 5% of the overall project is going to the builder, and then 15%, which is 3/4 of the GP split, is going to the two syndicators. And I don't know what the breakdown is or the arrangement between the two syndicators. I don't know if like one's getting 10, one's getting 5. I don't know if they're both getting 7.5 or there. I just saw the breakdown between their firm and the builder, which was 5 and 15. So the builder is getting 5% of the total project.
Right. So it's 25% of the GDP share, which that sounded fair, I think. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. More aligned. Yeah. Okay. And then
and by having the builder, it seems like a big benefit that he doesn't really get paid very much unless all the investors earn money. Well,
I think the builders still get paid. They don't get the overhead fee, but I think there's definitely still the salary component since he's spending. Yeah, he's definitely charging to project. I wouldn't think he'd do it for free. Yeah, just at cost. Basically, he's not charging the overhead.
Yeah, but he's paying it. His employees. The builder himself may be the construction manager and is taking a chunk of money for that, and then maybe participating in development fees. But what they're not doing, I was just kind of thinking about it, is they're not saying, okay, this is the cost, and this is our contingency, and this is our profit stated here. They're taking that profit and they're saying we're going to put that on a shelf, and in lieu of that, we'll take the 25% of the promote.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah, it'd be good to see some transparency there from the builder about what where exactly they're getting this $109 per square foot, and I guess maybe make sure that there's not actually an additional profit that's being taken on top of that.
They just shared the cost summary and how they come up with that number, but yeah, but I don't know if anyone could look at that data and say whether it makes sense or not. But I mean, the cost. I guess that's going back to kind of the cost control mechanism. What I want to try to talk about is when we work with a bank, we're doing construction loans, and there is a process to get draws, and there's a process for the underwriter to say whether your construction cost, makes sense. You cannot overbid it because I mean you could overbid, but not overly so. There's kind of a control also kind of when you build, say 20%, 15%, or when you finish the foundations or when you finish framing, you get a draw. In this case, I don't know how that's going to work. If there's going to be a QC, if they're going to hire a third-party inspector, just to make sure the work is done, per plan. So that could be a risk in that.
Because there's no big brother lender taking care of all those items.
But that could be a benefit because it's hard to work with big brother lender, right? It takes up a long time, especially today. You're probably not even going to be able to easily get a loan today due to the COVID and all that other issues right now. Yeah. So also, I look at the budget and I, again, don't see an extra reserve. I don't know, Chris, you were able to dive into numbers. So I wasn't able to find like extra reserve, just like a working capital, anything like that. So one is if the project overrun, then you might have to do a capital call, or maybe just holding extra for cases when you maybe have vacant units for extra period of time. So that I don't see in the budget as well. So, yeah. So I guess it's kind of balanced between the risk of new construction and there's no rent collection risk because right now there's not going to be any tenant in the property, so there's no vacancy. I mean, until a year and a half later, but there's definitely still risk in the new construction, and we're going to have to look at later slide whether the reward kind of balance with the risk. Okay, we're going to shift gear. Any other?
Did I see earlier that they said 27% is the occupancy break-even point?
Yeah, yeah. I put that number in there based on just my quick calculation on the Excel. Yeah. So they're going to run the project the first 2 years with no loans. So first year and a half, they're going to building out this thing. So I mean, if the markets is still bad, or if there's no vaccine or whatever, vacancy still staying high or a lot of supply, they could cruise it out with just not do it alone. I mean, it's gonna affect the return to the investor. Yeah, but it means there's no risk for foreclosure, I guess, or not being able to cover its loan commitments.
I guess I think that's a big positive to put up front, especially with the uncertain nature of the economic environment right now, to go into a project that isn't going to be assuming debt for 2 years and then obviously has an option of whether to assume debt at all. I think that that's a pretty good hedge. I mean, obviously everything else in the project would need to line up, but I think what we're going to be seeing with a lot of projects is, as people don't pay their rent, as people lose their jobs, we're going to see, kind of skyrocketing defaults, which is going to affect a lot of people that have heavily leveraged. So by doing everything in cash right now, it gives the project options a couple of years down the road, which I think is good. There's not going to be as much of a risk of the project just going under. There's not going to be a balloon payment that's going to be due. It's not like this is being done with a bridge loan, just because we don't know where the environment's going to be in a couple of years.
So tell me how this is that there's no loan while they're doing the construction. I must have missed that. There's no rent collection risk. I get that because COVID, there's more likelihood of people not paying their rent. But no, did somebody say there was no loan during the first 2 years? How does that work?
Yeah, they raised all the investor equity to do the construction. 100% cash.
Yeah, 100% cash. So
Mhm.
the only risk there, as Henry said, is going to be that it doesn't look like there's much of a reserve in the initial capital raise.
Mhm.
And, new development, construction, anything like that is notorious for going over time and over budget. So that, I think, is a significant concern, is what happens if it goes over budget. I mean, because the builder is a GP, perhaps there is some incentive there for him to not go over budget. But then again, if he does go over budget, I mean, if they put out a capital call, it's not going to be on him. It's going to be on the investors. It's not like he's going to have to come up with the cash. So it depends on where the balance is there and if there is a balance in the builder's risk or not. Because, he's not taking profit up front, but I guess I don't see much of a reason for him to really try to stay on budget if he knows that they can do a capital call. So looking at the syndicators and see what their history is with doing capital calls and what their capital call rate is with new construction, have they had to do that before? I think that'll be kind of really telling. If they've never done it before, maybe that's something, but if there's a history of them having to come up with more money, that could be of significant concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good question. And which I was gonna talk about what's the, yeah, I mean, I can see that risk. I wonder why. I would probably have to model it and see if they have a GMP plus the 10% contingency. What would that do to the? I mean, I can see maybe potentially $500,000 more and plus 10% of 500,000, 5 million. That's another two. Okay, so that's significantly more capital to raise. I see why it's going this route, because I can see totally if we put GMP, you can de-risk this entire project. Then there's not going to be this concern when they're raising capital from us. But in this case, they're not able to because it will further reduce the capital return, which is kind of not super high compared to, I mean, we're going to talk about the return in a couple of slides later, but actually, let's save that thought so we can go back to that and see whether it makes sense. Okay, so I think we can go and talk about the other parts of the business plan, which is the rent comms. This is the comms that they selected. Most of them are, I classify them in class A because of their year bill. They all have better amenities. And so they're kind of the green one with a class B. They call it class B. Even they have some affordable ones. These one might quote unquote lower income, but they still have a pool. And they still look pretty nice with stainless steel appliance packages and granite countertops. So even that. So, but then from an average dollar per square foot standpoint, they're not asking the top. Of course, they're being class B, but they're not asking the least either. I mean, they're definitely more expensive than affordable ones. So they're kind of about rank number 3 and 4 in the pack, kind of middle of the pack. I
Where
think
are these comps from? Are these comps from the builder, or are these a separate thing?
These comps are from the sponsors.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is from them. I checked the numbers. Go in apartments.com, look at the range, look at the most recent numbers. By the way, during this COVID, I don't see rent actually dropped, which is, I thought it was kind of surprising to me, but it didn't drop because they have history of when they last surveyed these apartments. So they're still pretty strong. And I can also get the median household income of their census tract to see whether they're comparable, and these are all pretty strong. So there's no correlation in terms of the income of that census tract or the size. I think Yan did a great job of doing a regression analysis, kind of see the size of the unit and the dollar per square foot. You should see a negative relationship. The bigger it is, the smaller dollars per square foot. In this case, I think Yan said there isn't a very clear relationship. It's like 16%. It's really all depends on the amenities or the class of the the building. So in that sense, the average number is about 1,072 for the same average size of 710. If we use 650 square foot for this building, which is, by the way, the smallest of all the buildings. I know that might be an issue with, Texas want big, Texans want bigger units, but maybe not. But anyway, so 650 times, this $1.51, I getting about 984, which is not that much far off from $1,000, which they get. So I think they might still get 1,000. There are people who actually wanted to pay a little bit less and don't want to use the pool. Maybe is going out of fashion. People don't want social distancing. They don't want to share the same water with people. I don't know, but but then it's close enough. I don't see an issue here. And from the two bedrooms, same story. Right?
And these are current trends. I mean, we have to project them 2 years out because that's when they're going to be ready, right?
That's true. These are current rents. Yep. These are current rent. Yep. Same thing. I think the same story for 2 bedrooms. I think they're comped a little bit high on the 2 bedroom. They're comping about 1,200. I think it's about 134. But looking at the average number, but they can still get it. I kind of within the range of margin. It's not like $200 or $100 above. And this is going to be a new building, and it's different style as well. This is a garden style. And these guys are more of a 3 or 4 story apartment. They're going to have an elevator. There's going to be less of a green space, so to speak. So that might be a plus for the this apartment. Anyway, so yeah, so.
But I noticed for this 2 bedroom, this is much smaller than others.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a concern. Yeah, the size, like you said, that the differentiation is they're definitely the smallest one, and they're not that cheap either. It's like $1,200 here, and this is $1,130. Even not a whole lot bigger. So I basically calm it down to 1,030 or 150 in my own, but they might still get it. Yeah, because they're not a whole lot of unit. They don't have like 300 units to rent out. They only have 50, and out of the 50, I think they have 46. So they might still be able to get it, just because of the population growth and that they're seeing.
So the other difference besides being smaller is that we've rated it as a B and the others are A or A minus.
Yeah. The sponsor rated as a B. I rate the other one are A and A minus. Yeah, but yes. That's the difference. The biggest thing is there's no pool. And they don't have a fancy like lobby. They don't have gyms. They don't have, these things. But maybe these things are going to be less and less just due to the recent health crises. That might be out of fashion.
But some of those amenities that they have, like they have a dog walk. Like, how much does a dog walk cost? You got a fence, and so it's a lot of those seem pretty inexpensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a pool, especially in an area like Leander, I think it's essential. I mean, I think that they're really kind of crippling their ability to be competitive and raise rents in the future by not having a pool. I mean, Texas gets really hot, and especially for, working class renters, I mean, it's expensive for them to do air conditioning all the time. They want to go out to the pool. Every other apartment in the area has a pool. They need to put one in. I'm not sure kind of what the breakdown is for A versus B class, but it looks like, I mean, yes, while they're saying that they are B class, the building is going to be newer than any of the A class that are here, but they're not charging too far below A class. I mean, I don't see much of a price difference when you account for the size of the actual units and with the A class. I mean, I don't see why anybody would want to pay $1,200 for an 883 square foot 2 bedroom.
No pool.
They could pay a little bit more and get a unit that's 25 times bigger with a pool. I mean, I think that their 2 bedroom comps are off. You know, you also, you know, you look at the rent per square footage. I mean, it is pretty high, you know, and it's higher than, you know, the other A-class ones. You know, you've got a view at Cedar Park, you know, they're at 1.28. You know, the Sarah, that's at 1.35. You know, these are bigger units with more amenities. I mean, I guess I don't see how they can realistically compete at that price. You know, what Vivek said is true, though, is that we're looking 2 years out. So that could be something, but I mean, you know, we're in an uncertain economic landscape. So, you know, I don't think that we can necessarily sit here and say like, oh yes, of course rents are going to go up. You know, we can't count on that like we could a year ago. You know, it's not as much of a given at this point in the economic cycle.
So the sponsors are planning on when it's built in a year and a half from now, they'll get 1,200. And then we're looking at, it's not like all of them will rise. The others theoretically will rise somewhat, but the 1,200 is what they're looking to be able to get a year and a half from now to get the returns they think. Okay.
Well, what is the historical rent growth in the area?
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah, that's a great segue to that.
I mean, we can like discount it for like you have 1 year and a half to go, right? So assuming that because this COVID, then a year you would not raise the rent. So you have a half year to raise the rent. So use that to approximate like after half year. So how much other buildings can grow, right? So then you see the difference.
Yeah, I do agree with Andrew's
That's
comment.
a good point.
Yeah, and with Yan too. I think their price is a little bit high on this in the 2-bedroom. And it kind of depends on what the outlook for the next 2 years. And you asked about historical rent. I have a chart that show that, but we can also see what CoStar thinks the future for the next 2 years is going to look like. So they're perfect segue. So in this chart, we see the rent growth numbers, and historically, before 2019, it could go as high as 7%, 4% some years, but you know, mostly in the kind of averaged about at least 3, maybe 4%, kind of in that range, 3.5. So actually in their pro forma, they're saying it's going to go at the same rate at 3%, but CoStar actually already revised their number. So if you could report maybe a couple months ago, it would be showing probably right around that same thing. In fact, I think they just basically cut down the entire year of 2020 to a kind of negative rate, and then bring it back up, and then just make it flat, you know, 1.5% or 1% range. So yeah, it'd be interesting kind of how CoStar come up with that number. It might, I don't know if that is even conservative, but I think that maybe in line with a lot of what the economists say. At least currently they're saying kind of a V-shaped recovery, just lost 1 year and go back to more of a normal, but they're not going back to the 3%. So at least CoStar is thinking about maybe more like a little bit of a rebound, but then staying kind of low. So I'm definitely factoring this assumption to the model, which is going to change the return number, which we can see in a bit. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, 1.5 years down the line, the rents might not go significantly higher than what we're seeing right now.
Right.
It's possible that it could be lower than that, depending on the new supply and changing dynamics of the economy.
Yep. Yeah, good point. Okay. So I guess
also theoretically going to be more new supply too, because construction is listed as an essential business in Texas. You know, if we're seeing high unemployment, but construction is still going, we could see a lot of people trying to move into construction. And trying to build, you know, just so that they can get a paycheck. The negative side of that for us is going to be, there's going to be a lot of inventory going out there, and a lot of the projects that are in the works right now, you know, new single family home neighborhoods that are going up, those developers might have to sell off at a loss in the next year, you know, because people simply can't afford to pay the prices that they thought they were going to be able to get for it. I mean, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are about halfway constructed all throughout that area. So if there's suddenly a large glut of cheap single family homes in places like Leander, that could be significant competition if somebody can get a house for the same mortgage payment as an apartment. And I guess I think in Texas, in a place like Leander, where it is a suburb, it's not in the heart of the downtown where everything's happening, I think people will go for a house 9 times out of 10 over an apartment.
You know, and we all know about these groups, and I know one investment group that's talking to these large builders about buying these neighborhood developments and then renting them out, and then, you know, clearly with the option of selling.
Right.
So I was wondering, and you made your point clear, that I was like, well, I wonder if like this development, that option would be a competition to this development, or if this development would be under the radar, which I'd love it to be, but it sounds like it wouldn't be necessarily, you know.
Yeah, I
don't know what those things would rent for, like, you know,
right.
you know.
I know that I have a few single family homes in Pflugerville now, and I guess what I'm seeing there, the rent for I've got a couple of 4-bedroom, like 2-bathroom homes, and the rents there, you know, for homes that are, you know, 10, 20 years old are about, you know, $1,900 for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and that's significantly closer to Austin too than Leander. So, you know, that's not too far off from, you know, the rent that they're looking at. Yeah, I don't know if there's like, you know, I don't know what the 2-bedroom rent in Pflugerville is, but obviously the closer that you get to Austin downtown or to Round Rock, the more expensive it's going to be. So,
but if somebody does a lease to own kind of thing on it, you know, they'll make their numbers just fine, and they won't have to achieve your.
Exactly. I mean, you know, I think, you know, we really have to look at, yeah, like Peter said, what is going to be the rent for a single family home? Because, you know, people like bigger stuff, and they like land in Texas. They want a backyard. They want to be able to go outside and grill. They want to be able to, you know, whatever, run through the sprinkler and put a bikini pool. So, you know, if they can get something comparable that's bigger for the same price, you know, they're going to go with that.
Right. There's definitely more families in that area as well too. It's not single. Yeah. So the pool is going back to the pool. That might be important for the families who have kids.
Yeah. Especially during the summer.
A question. So I think Andrew brought up a very good point. Like there might be more supply because people might move into construction. But another constraint is that maybe we should looking into like how much you already get the permit. So I think in the pipeline, if you don't have a lot in the pipeline, although people want to work for construction, if you don't have the project, then
Yeah.
That's definitely something we can check with the permitting department. And, you know, what opens my eye in this discussion is Andrew's point, going back, how many new single family homes are out there. We usually compare to the multifamily and looking, which we do have that data from CoStar, but yeah, we need to look at single family, knowing area is not overdeveloped. So there will be a lot of single that are going to come out too. So I think we have this next chart, which is supplies and demand. So which kind of show in the this is Cedar Park, which is really close to Leander. I don't know why CoStar wasn't able to include this area as well. But I think majority of the new builds are kind of in the north, west, northeast regions. Cedar Park is definitely one of the highest new supply market. And looks like they deliver a lot of units. You can see in the chart. A lot happened in kind of late 2019 and not so much in the future. So they definitely have a glut of apartments they're trying to get released out. Good thing is they do have a really strong absorption rate. I think it's like 400 per year. So right now the vacancy is about 8%. So it's not super high. So I think those are going to get absorbed. And then new delivery under construction is 262 units. So it's not too many that are coming out. Doesn't look like a huge concern from a supply demand standpoint, but we should take a look at the new single family home as well. And then I think we're gonna go through the almost close to the end, which is the financial model. I did have their Excel spreadsheet, which is really great. So we get to play around with the numbers, but let's look at the numbers that they have. They're doing a project for 10-year hold. It's going to be returning 80% of the capital in a refinance in year 2. They're doing an 80-20 split and a 4.5 interest rate, which I think is a little bit high. They probably can get a lower number, but yeah, they probably can get a 4, even a 3.5. That's what I've been hearing. But there's not a lot of, it's not easy to get a loan right now, but maybe in a year and a half later, that might be stabilized in the financial market. And they're doing 38% expense ratio, which is kind of in lines with what I hear from new construction or different. I think Neil's project yesterday was kind of in that range. So these number looks okay to me. And then we're gonna look at the financial model, because basically, again, going into the price and how much it's going to cost to build one. Basically, how much it would cost to buy one. Kind of comparing the two. And there's not a whole lot of comparables. There are only 4 of them in 2019. It looks like the average price is about 173,000. And again, they're able to build it at 132. So there's quite a bit of margin per door. And so the build to cap rate is they're building it and stabilize the unit at 90% occupancy. The cap rate is about 6.7. I think the market over there is right now at about 5 from 5.5. So yeah, I think the numbers still make sense from the standpoint.
6.7 cap rate in the Austin area is pretty good, I think.
Right, that's why build them, because if they can get it to 6 and 7 and they can only buy it to 5, it makes sense. But now the question would be, if the market is discounting 20%, is what we're gonna hear from different people, would that still make sense to build? So we're gonna go back to that in a bit. Again, looking at the financial model, this is kind of CoStar's projection for cap rates and price per unit from 2020 to 2024. They don't see a lot of expansion in cap rate, so price wise they think it's fairly stable. And cost, again, the cost per door is 133, build cap 5, I think 6 point something. I need to update this. It was my old number. And they're using an exit cap rate at 5.75. So from 5 to 5.75, there's still some reversion. So I like that they're having some conservative in the numbers. Based on the research, yeah, so maybe exit cap could be as high as 6, but it's not too big of a change. I would use 6 in my model if I'm doing it as my own project. From a vacancy standpoint, they're kind of averaging about 8%, which is what they use. So they're aligned there. In CoStar, they also have a rent growth number, basically average about 0.8 to almost 1%. You know, they have one negative year and the rest is kind of stable at 1 point something. And they're currently using rent growth of 3% for the next 10 years.
I think that's, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's very aggressive. Yeah,
that is aggressive. Now, you know, their justification was it's been growing 5 to 6% year to year last 10 years. So to them, that they think they're conservative. But if we're gonna use CoStar as a measurement or a ruler, then they're aggressive. So I crunch the number using their model, and based on some of more conservative numbers,
So
here's what I get.
Here's the question: if they were getting debt on that, right? I was thinking about this today, and I know that this materials for investors, but if they were going to their bank, what kind of rent growth would the bank allow?
That's good. That's a good question. Yeah, what would they underwrite to?
And I could guarantee you it'd be 0 for or a half, and and I don't know that if they're going to those banks aren't dumb. And they're kind of a nice break, like a break on a car. Anyway, so rent growth right now, I'm just having, and it could change in a month. I'm having a hard time with.
Right. I think in the short term we do see some, slowing down of rents, but I think I mean, hearing Andrew speak about the growth and the path of progress in Leander, 3% might be hard for 10 years continuously, but after the initial 2-3 years, there could be some significant growth in rents for the pent-up demand and so on
Yeah.
and so forth.
And as Andrew mentioned, with 140 years of population growth, it's going to
Yeah.
take more than a year of bad economic activity to really have that much of a hamper down on what appears to be otherwise solid growth for such a long time. So
No, I agree.
you can't overturn the giant in a year.
Yeah.
Right. And it's 60% population growth, right? In 5 years. Is that what we saw? Yeah.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's a lot of land out there.
Right.
Yeah. There's scope for competition as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, I think you have something you want to say? You can unmute yourself, Jeff, if you want to talk.
Yeah, can you hear me, Harry?
Yep, we can hear you.
So I have a question. I probably missed that in the general presentation, but I think that in the earlier slides you mentioned that the cash on cash return projection is roughly 11 to 12%,
Yep.
which is pretty good. And also mentioned that it's going to be all cash deal at year 2, 80% of the equity is going to return back to the investor. So let's say if we invest $100 into this deal, so theoretically year 2 we're going to get back $80 and have $20 stay in the deal, right? So my question is that 12% cash on cash based off of the $100 that we invest initially, or the $20 that are going to stay in the deal after the refinance?
Yeah, so the 12% is based on the $20 that still stay in the deal. Yeah. So if you looking at 10 years, is actually 10%. So first 2 years they have no cash flow, or a year and a half for no cash flow. So yeah, bring it down to that point.
Got it. So number wise, let's say today we invest $100. In 2 years, we're gonna be returned back $80 through cash or refi, and the $20 that will stay in with a 10% average, we're gonna get back $2 on average each year for the next 10 years until the resale, right? That's in general, that's the return we're looking at in terms of the dollar amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. It's good to clarify. Thank you.
So if it's 12% on $20, that's actually not much.
Yeah, I would agree with Yan. That's that really
Yeah.
kind of kills the return there.
Yeah. So this is how I think, because I think Jerry mentioned a very good point. I didn't realize that. But I think basically this is how I think about it. So the operator simply knows that right now might be a difficult time for them to raise money or to borrow money from the bank, but they still want to do some project. So how do they solve this? They go to the investors, they ask for money. Yet, if they go through, the investor actually not getting much upside because they get kicked out on year 2. So you help them to go through the most difficult year, yet you're not sharing profit with them. That's how I feel about it. I just realized that.
Another way to look, there's nothing wrong in the way you put it, but another way to think about it, Yan, is a lot of investors also concerned about capital preservation at this point. So they would rather preserve their capital than grow it by leaps and bounds. But I do understand you're acting like a bank, but on top of it, you're taking some additional risk with the new construction, whatever new construction brings in. At the end of the day, $80 is returned to you, and then say, hey, for the $20 that you have remaining with me, I'm going to give you 12% on that $20 remaining, which is significantly lower than what on paper it looks like 12% on 100K.
Yeah, and I would say, you're spot on, Vivek, about capital preservation, but I would have a hard time arguing that any development deal is a capital preservation deal. And I can twist things pretty well. Capital preservation deal, you'd buy all cash and some nice cash flow kind of deal and get 3% return. So I'm kind of with Yan here, but this is where if you bring enough equity together, things get renegotiated. But I hate it when this happens.
I think it'll be interesting if I know they might succeed and raise a lot of money, but had they done like a guaranteed return of 10% during the construction years, or during the construction years they don't have any cash flow, but had they done a stable 10% return, would that be something that is more interesting to the investors without having an equity piece of it?
Because I've been thinking about this, I think that if this was a state you put your money in and your $100 and you get 10% for 10 years. I don't think it needs to be 10 years, but nonetheless, you could sell this deal. There's some things that are like the pool, the fact that like when you see the Google photo of the property, you're like, there's nothing there. It's a little scary. But in terms of a return, I think you could sell the return on a development deal at 10% pretty successfully, I think.
Sure. There definitely some, I think you're acting like a lender, you're paying off the loan and then refining into a new loan. But the first lender is taking a massive risk of actually the construction costs going up or the construction delays coming into play. So that's something definitely to think about.
Yeah, I think you basically need to understand this and then compare this project as, okay, more like this is more like an equity or more like a fixed income, right? So because these two, you are asking for different like a return and you are also taking different risk, right? So I feel like this is you're taking a lot of risk, but you're not getting much return on that. That's how I feel.
But if you think about it, even if you think of it as a fixed return sort of a deal, the first 2 years or the 18 months that it's constructed, you're not getting anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Your cash flow only starts coming in on the $20 that you have remaining at the end of 18 or 24 months.
So Henry, correct me if I'm wrong, but and I always like to think in terms of opportunity costs and like what you may give up in exchange of certain things. So at least for me, when I look at the 2-year refinance, that to me is an opportunity to use that capital for something else that can gain an additional return beyond what we would have had if it was otherwise locked in that deal. And I believe they did an analysis of between whether you did or did not reinvest your refinance proceeds. So if it's going to be 12% or 10%, whatever it is, if you just do a straight, I don't know, just like a straight 10% in like a private money lending deal, you just add that 10% on your $80, so to speak. So I think that's maybe on the upside there is what you could do in place of it for certain investors.
That's true.
Yeah. Right. I think there would definitely be types who prefer getting the capital because they're taking risk off the table, at least most of it.
For sure. And other people just don't like doing a lot of deals all the time. They don't like doing private money lending every 6 months. So they prefer to do just leave it and forget it and leave me alone and come back to me in 10 years. So.
Right, yeah. And there could still be upside too on this project because they still have money in the deal, so they still get 80% of the deal. I mean, right now I think it's hard to see past it right now what's happening in the next 2 years, but I mean in 5, 6, 7 years, with all the money that being printed by the Fed, where is that going to go to? It's going to asset prices. So maybe instead of a reversion, we might even see a further, what do you call it, decrease in cap rate. So that's
nothing new.
Right? Yeah.
So if that is the case, which I believe will be the case, then you should actually have more stake in the game instead of just 20%, right?
Yeah, I guess a question I have there is like how does the ownership stake get affected with the refinance? Because it seems like it seems like this is operating more as the investors are acting pretty much, just like a bank, but not really loaning with any interest. Because it's like, okay, let's, they're projecting, whatever, 14 to 16 months for building. So, it's basically, we're giving them a loan almost interest free for 18 months. Then they're giving us back, 80% of the money with not really any return on it. It's just like the straight money back. And then we're only getting paid on the 20% that's left in there. So where is our return on the 80% that we just gave them for free for 18 months?
So,
I guess that's my question.
Yeah, so I think the 80-20 split holds. It's just the 80-20 out of your base capital on the cash flow side, but on the sale, I think there's still the 80-20 still applies.
On the initial.
Yeah.
I think it does. I think there's certain hurdles that they reach there where that does change. I can't remember what they are, and I think during the construction period, there's a 5% preferred return as well.
That's going to be accrued. Okay, I'll get to clarify. Thanks. Okay.
Is there accrued pref or just pref for that year?
Yeah, it's accrued just during the construction period, though.
I see. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you explain that again?
Yeah, they have a preferred return that accrues from the time you invest the capital to I think the certificate of occupancy. So through the construction period, the preferred return, I believe, from what I understand, drops off after construction is complete. So not when lease up happens, but when construction's complete.
But Chris, just to clarify on that point, if it's 5% accrued during the construction only and it stops after lease up, where are they getting that cash flow from?
I think it's accrued.
They're raising more than they need, and they're cannibalizing on the money that they've raised, is my guess.
Yeah, and I got to look at the PPM a little bit more, but my understanding is it's either paid out through, I think it's paid out at the sale, so it's accrued and then put on the back end, I think. But I'm not 100% on that.
I see. Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also have the extra waterfall. I think once the investor getting 15% IRR, it switched over to from an 80-20 split to 60-40 or 50-50. I can't remember.
Like a tiered sort
yeah,
of.
but only if they meet 15% IRR, which currently is not on the model. Right. So I think the investors are not getting, the cash flow average cash on cash is respectable 10%. You may say that from percentage wise, okay, maybe the net is not that high because it's based off of there's initial 5% pref based off of the initial investment, but then after year two is your base is a lot smaller. So the percentage will not mean much, but they're taking some risk off the table, and you also can get an upside when they sell. So it's just kind of personal preference, maybe. I don't know, because I think almost all of the investor, I think including Neo, when they refi capital, the ways on cash and cash return is based on what's left in a deal. It's pretty standard, I think, in the industry. Only if they really have a super deal where they can actually, refi and then use the older base, the initial base. I don't see a lot of project that does that. So this is not just a thought. But then I guess if you use more conservative assumptions, then you're using 0 rent growth the first 2 years and then 2% rent growth year to year, and a little higher exit cap for the reversion and a little bit lower rent. And then refi at year 3 instead of year 2, kind of depends on what the market looked like, and a little lower LTV, it would further reduce that. Not to say that I'm right and they're wrong, or it might even fall in between these two assumptions. These assumptions are just assumptions, and they're not super optimistic. I think they're okay. Maybe they should use a lower rent growth. There's things like that, but they're not overly optimistic like we see in some other projects. So in that case, it could fall anywhere in between, kind of like the best case, or maybe not the best case. I don't know what, I wouldn't call it the worst case, but more conservative case. Yeah, so I think that's just kind of the end of the charts. I think we had a lot of good conversation. In fact, we are actually already an hour and 45 minutes into it. So I think this might be a good place to give a wrap. And everyone's still there. Yeah, and if anyone who to reach out to us or talk about this deal, anyone want to interested in investing in this deal, I can connect you, or Chris can too, connect you with the operator, and we can or have more discussion later. They said they wanted to speak with us, so if there's a lot of interest, we can even bring them on and we can ask these questions to them and see how they respond to these type of questions. So, any last comments from anybody?
Great call, guys.
Yeah, great discussion.
Great discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, really helped, really good, and nice to see you, Andrew.
Yeah, you too, Peter.
Oh.
And nice meeting everyone. And I think I have some idea of new construction now.
Yeah,
I've done
absolutely.
a lot of analysis for new construction before this. Thanks, Henry.
Yeah, just ask Peter.
Yeah,
not for the faint of heart. That's for sure.
I think it was from like these discussions where, some time ago I was like, gosh, having been in the value add world, I was like, doesn't seem like there's a lot of like value to create to have some ad. And I think it was, with these guys, and I was like, this like new construction like may act, because I always I perceive new development as like the riskiest on the rate, the rating scale, unless you have a tenant in hand, it's commercial or whatever.
Right.
And like, I don't know if that's true, because you can't like create value with the value add. So like, maybe these smaller size, like 50 units and below, like Neil's deal from yesterday, where the construction, like building 50 units or, whatever Neil's is, 18 or whatever, especially Neil's, like there's not a lot of like construction risk. It's like cookie cutter business.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're able to find the dirt somewhere where the demand is good and you're not going to get like, oversupplied, and you've thought through like a design element that's like, normal, I don't know. I think that all of a sudden that development as a project actually has less risk than saying, oh, I bought a, year 2000 100-unit building outside of Atlanta that needs some fixing upping to be done. I'm not sure I buy off on that hypothesis, which I, have for a very long time in product types beyond multifamily. So anyway, this was really fun for me. And
that could especially hold true in Texas as well. One of the things that I've noticed is that people like new stuff.
Yeah.
Like here in the Bay Area, it's like all of the inventory is old. Like every building's like at least 50 years old. Every single family home is built like between the 1920s and the 1960s. So people in California don't really care about having an old house or an old building because that's all there is. In Texas, that's like not really the case. I mean, there is like stigma against houses built like in the 90s. People are like, oh, I want a house that was built in 2016. I don't want some house that was built in 1998. I don't know if that's true for, apartments as much. I don't know if people care about when their apartments were built, but, certainly to Peter's point, it might actually be safer to have a newer constructed building, because that might actually be a draw as opposed to, some old thing that was built in the 80s. I don't know, but it's an interesting question to approach.
No,
Yeah.
I second that, because I think the market, I mean, we kind of have to pivot. I mean, value add works so well as the market expansions, but right now we can't say we remodel a unit and get $200 more. It's just not the way to do it. But value add, yeah, you actually having the physical product. I mean, that's significant value add. So yeah, that I think it's definitely a better unit product. I mean, just the finished product, because we've been buying these older property, they're still 5 cap, 1960 build, right? Now you can build one for 7 cap, right? We still saw that number, 7 cap brand new product, and it's not going to have any maintenance issue for the next 10 years. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
I think it's mainly the supply and demand. So many people jump into the value add. So there's not much room for you to add value at all, because when you buy the property, you already buy it at very low, like a cap rate. Of course you can. add value. There's not much room. Yeah. So that's why the new building actually probably makes sense. But of course, you have to work with very experienced builders, like the one that the from New Steel yesterday looks like they had a lot of properties like student housing.
Yeah, well, it's definitely that's going to be harder because you have to have really good track record, and financing would be an issue. Yeah. Okay. Well, great discussion, guys. So good to talk to you guys. Great input from everybody. And
Thank you.
yeah, in fact, we might do the next co-investing group meeting on the Neil's deal.
Yeah, definitely. That would be
We
good.
definitely want to discuss that one. It's very unique one. Yeah.
Yeah, let's compare the two and see how that looks like. All right, guys. Well, chat again later. Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Be
Thank
safe.
you.
See everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.